Hello, everybody, and welcome to Aaron's Memorial Day special. What's special about it? Well, I wasn't planning on doing a video today, but I decided because it was Memorial Day that I was going to do one, so that makes it special. That also makes it May 30th, Monday, or Monday, May 30th. I don't know. Yeah, I do know, but uh, what a crazy, kind of crazy few weeks. Not really. I mean, I've just been on Twitter throwing impotent rocks at giants. um, I know I spent the last 5 days on LinkedIn arguing with various people on a CIA post doing their memorial propaganda um, post about the stars on the wall, how each star represents a fallen CIA officer. Um, I can't say anything as to the personal intent of each and every one of the people that one of those stars represents, but I mean, the CIA as an institution as a whole, I could say a whole lot of things about that, and not very many of them are good. And I had this one guy talking to me about how I'm stuck in the duality of my youth, looking at things through the lens of good and evil. When I haven't mentioned that once, and it's not that I consider the CIA evil, I do consider them counterproductive to the well being of all citizens in the United States, and certainly to the well being of the citizens of the world. Um, and that's just not my fault. They're the ones trying to nation build and doing a horrifyingly piss poor job of it. And honestly, when you look at it, when you look at what they do, when you look at the so there's this guy, was it John Perkins? So yeah, the guy's name was John Perkins, and he wrote the one book he was most famous for was the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman. All right, so Wikipedia says, oh man, really? Okay. John Perkins, born January 28th, 1945, is an American author. His best known book is Confessions of an Economic Hitman, in which Perkins claims to have played a role in an alleged process of economic colonization of third world countries on behalf of what he portrays as a cabal of corporations, banks, and the United States government. Keep in mind, this is Wikipedia, so it's liberal slanted a little. Whatever. They do themselves a disservice because they still have to fucking. They still. They can't get around facts, and Wikipedia is like an encyclopedia. It's like the internet's encyclopedia, and so it's very there are the great thing about it, and what makes it still accurate despite its liberal bias, um, is that it's still governed to some sense by the world. That is, anybody can go in there and edit things and add things and whatnot for the most part. Um, and so even if they can stop people from posting certain things, what they can't do is post outright lies themselves. They can bury the facts. They can put a whole like paragraphs and paragraphs of opinion of state-sponsored opinions before those facts, and you'll see that a lot. But those facts are still there. So guys like John Perkins are on Wikipedia, and pretty much for the most part, what they say about him is accurate when they're talking about facts. Now, when you get to things like opinion, where let's say he worked directly, let's get to his controversy. So let's see, controversy. Sebastian Mallaby, economics columnist of the Washington Post. And keep in mind, I haven't read this before, actually. I'm familiar with John Perkins from watching interviews with him on YouTube. I think the first time I'd ever heard of him was in one of the Zeitgeist films, which, whatever happened with that, I check in on them, actually. I can tell you what happened with that. They're still around. It just didn't go anywhere. And it's one of the weird things about this world that I just don't understand. Like, I saw Zeitgeist when the first one came out back in what it was like 2007. God, I wish I could do it on this phone because I like to say, "Hey Google, what's this and that." So I guess I can still say that when I'm making a video. It just shuts the video off. Anyway, yeah, it turns out I'm totally from memory right. Zeitgeist, the first movie did come out in 2007. Anyway, I'm not sure if he was in that one specifically. Anyway, regardless, he was in one of them. So yeah, that's how I know about him. So back to reading about him. I'm going through all of this because I don't want people to be like, oh, you only look at one side of things. I'm very echo chamber sensitive, among other things. I'll get into that later. Echo chambers and why I'm sensitive to them, and also cults and well, which cults are echo chambers, pretty much. They're just like echo chambers on steroids. Echo chamber level 7. I don't know. So yeah, controversy about John Perkins. Sebastian Mallaby, economics columnist of the Washington Post, reacted sharp. It's like, who are these people? It's like, okay, he's an economist for the Washington Post, which is owned by Jeff Bezos and is super liberal, left leaning. And so immediately it's like, okay, well, this is this is my source. Okay, several grain of salt taken. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so Sebastian Mallaby, economist, columnist, or economics columnist of the Washington Post, reacted sharply to Perkins' book, describing him as a conspiracy theorist, a vainglorious peddler of nonsense, and yet his book, Confessions of Economics, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful word, vainglorious. Look that up later. Vainglorious peddler of nonsense. Oh, I really like that word. Vainglorious peddler of nonsense, and yet his book Confessions, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, is a runaway bestseller. Mallaby, a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, holds naturally holds that Perkins some more grains of salt to take there, holds that Perkins' conception of international finance is largely a dream and that his basic contentions are flat wrong. Okay. Says you. As an example, Malaby states that Indonesia reduced its infant mortality and illiteracy rates by 2/3 after economists persuaded its leaders to borrow money in 1970. Okay, one time in 1970, you supposedly reduced infant mortality rates and illiteracy in Indonesia. How many other things did you do that caused them? I'm just saying, I'm not saying, I don't know. We'll have to look into that a lot deeper. But all right, that's one thing. But that doesn't, that's, you need to have a whole list of things when you're talking about something like this. You can't just be like, well, this one time, like 450 fucking years ago, something, something that we did that you said is bad, arguably had a positive effect on a third world country. See? Look, we're awesome. Psh, get the fuck out of here. All right. Next in controversy, articles in the New York Times and Boston Magazine. I don't know anything about Boston Magazine, as well as a press release issued by the United States Department of State, have referred to a lack of documentary or testimonial evidence to corroborate the claim that the NSA was involved. Good luck getting evidence of anything the NSA does. Look what Edward Snowden had to go through to actually do that, by the way, and look at what he found when he did, by the way. Few more grains of salt. Big ones. After an extensive investigation, the New York Times concluded, wait, has referred to a lack of documentary testimonial evidence to corroborate the claim that the NSA was involved in his hiring by Chaz T. Main. After an extensive investigation, the New York Times concluded that the arc of Mr. Perkins' career seems to be described accurately, although they did not find evidence to support some of his fancier claims, including those involving the NSA. Why is that even under the controversy section? Oh, so the New York Times looked into it really, really deep and found that pretty much everything he said is totally accurate. Why is that a cut? I mean, I could just, I know I'm flashing the thing down right now in editing, but, and I just spilled coffee all over myself, but, I mean, seriously. But wait, there's more. In 2006, in a 2006 statement, a Statement Department release claims that much of the book appears, use commas, people, that much of the book appears to be a total fabrication. Wait, what? Wait, the New York Times found, although they did not, concluded that the arc of Mr. Perkins' career seems to be described accurately. In 2006, the State Department released claims that much of the book, they released claims that much of the book appears to be total fabrication. The NSA is a cryptological code-making and code-breaking organization, not an economic organization, with the ability to literally spy on everyone on the fucking planet. And oh, by the way, they even have a militant wing because they're connected to the military cyber command, who actually operates in the same bunker that the NSA is in, but they're separate. I can't hold my coffee and I need to put that down. Separate. Where's the camera? Separate. Editing. Anyway. Neither of its missions anything remotely resembling placing economists at private companies in order to increase the debt of foreign countries. Perkins responds that WikiLeaks and Edward Snowden who I swear to God, I did not read this first. I wasn't even planning on doing this. Edward Snowden documents clearly demonstrate that the NSA is involved in a wide range of activities that have nothing to do with code making and code breaking, and that often serve to undermine other countries and their leaders. So I guess the controversy is that John Perkins is telling the truth. But wait, there's more. The State Department also claims that Perkins has alleged U.S. government complicity in the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., former Beatle John Lennon, and several unnamed U.S. senators who had died in plane crashes. I'm doing this because earlier today, I tweeted out of several tweets concerning Memorial Day. Oh, it was in response because I was looking at all the politicians doing their virtue signaling. We must remember all the men who fought and died for our freedom today, and that we wouldn't have any of it without them. Propaganda. But anyway, then I ran into Elon Musk, who I kind of glorify, and admittedly, he has, kind of a can do no evil pass for me. And so it was, at first, I had to go, a tough pill to swallow because he said today, he said a lot of things today. He's on it. Lacronic. It's like a meme. I couldn't agree more. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, 4 hours ago, he said, in remembrance of those who fell to preserve the light of freedom. And so I was fresh off my, tirade of, I went at Pelosi and, what's this? Secretary Blinken, Biden, of course. And so when I saw that, I was just like, oh, Elon, stop. How could you? But then I thought about the wording of it. It was like, in remembrance of those who fell to preserve the light of freedom. And I was like, well, there are citizens of the United States who have fallen to actually fight for freedom. And those people were, I said in reply, it was somebody like me. Oh, yeah, and then I went after Hillary, too. It's fun for me. I know, impotent rage, all that shit, but I have to try. I have to do something, say something, and it's a theme that I'm working on with my whole brand, Fudashi brand. It works with that, so I have to remember that every time people are like, "Oh, you're just some loser," blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, but I'm trying really hard to not be a loser. Um, and I believe in the things that I say. I'm not just trolling. It sounds like trolling because some of it's pretty freaking vile, but I mean it. Or in spirit at the very least. Like, I am highly critical of the government, not because I hate America, not because I hate freedom, because I love freedom and because I love America. And I love the people here as I love people everywhere. And I have traveled around the world, so I know what people everywhere are like. Well, not everywhere, but a lot of places. I went to India for 2 years. Um, and if you haven't been to India before, if you spend 2 years there, you are going to run into people from every other part of the world all the time because you're like, I suppose it's like this with any country. If you're a tourist in that country, there are tourist circuits. There are places that all the tourists go. And so you just go, and then there are special places that the tourists all hang out. And as a tourist, you just know these things and naturally gravitate towards these places. And so I spent 2 years traveling all around the country of India in hanging out in these places, playing guitar for people. I had an entire cafe in Rishikesh belting out at the top of their lungs, Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi. It was awesome. But when I wasn't doing that, I was smoking mad hash and playing chess with people from every country you could possibly imagine, although an incredibly large amount of them were from Israel. Anywho, so I am a backwoods, ignorant, stupid hick who was brainwashed by religion for the first 21 years of his life. But I gravitated out of it on my own naturally, without any encouragement of any kind, and still managed to travel all over the country and all over the world. And because after that, I went to Israel too for 8 months, and I've been to Mexico, and I've been to Canada a bunch, and I want to go back to Mexico. I need to find something to do with my dogs. I just don't feel good about taking my dogs to Mexico. Athena, maybe. She's a desert dog to begin with, but London, he's a German Shepherd. There was a German Shepherd when I was in India. I was staying in a city called Kirk, etc., with this guy, Deepak. Deepak Sharma. Yeah, boy, was he a character. Anyway, he had a German Shepherd, and the only thing that German Shepherd ever got to eat was chapati, which is a flatbread. It's like a Indian version of a tortilla, um, a soft tortilla, and some rice. I used to, and it's so incredibly hot there, like all the time. And I just felt so bad for this dog. It just looked so sad. And so that's what I think of every time I think about taking my dog London to Mexico. And I can't imagine abandoning them. And I don't know anybody who can take them that I would trust. So if you know anybody that would take at least London, conceivably maybe London and Athena if you're really awesome, I don't know. Athena could do it. I got her in Slab City. She's indestructible. London's, even though he's the more, I don't know if he's, I don't know. People are more intimidated by London because he's bigger and he's a German Shepherd. But Athena's the one they need to worry about. Oh my God. Anyway, Memorial Day, CIA, NSA, where was I? Oh, right. So, Elon, with his thing about remember those who have died for our freedom. And so I responded to that with yes, yes, we should remember those people. I said yes, people like JFK, the students at Kent, MLK, the people who actually fought for freedom, not expansion of their power. But I had wanted to add John Lennon to that list, but I wasn't really comfortable insinuating that the government had anything to do with his death, because technically he was killed by a fan. Um, but that fan had allegedly connections in some way through the like LSD programs. It's amazing the number of like madmen and serial killers that we've had in this country who have connections to the intelligence community's various experiments and programs with LSD or with psychoactives in general. Anywho, that's a whole other bowl of worms, box of worms, box of I don't know, whatever. So that's why I got all excited about that because I was just talking about that a minute ago, and here we go. It's like all these things exist in my mind, like the connections are all there. I've gone through all this information, and so when I say things and I troll things, or it sounds when I say things on the internet, on Twitter, to these institutions and these people, and it sounds like I'm just being an impotent trailer dwelling troll. The fact of the matter is that I am saying things that I actually, at this time, consider to be accurate criticisms based on things that I know, like this guy, John Perkins, that I've been very familiar with for at least since I first heard about him in one of the Zeitgeist films. So it's like early, because the second film, anyway, whatever. You get the point. Last part of this is State Department also claims that Perkins has alleged U.S. government complicity. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, has alleged U.S. government complicity in the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, who was one I should have added to that list, Martin Luther King Jr., and former Beatle John Lennon, and several, like, all my heroes, especially John Lennon, and several unnamed. I got to go into the place where the Beatles recorded the White Album in Rishikesh. I went to that ashram. It was so cool. It was also sad because the actual like room or building that they did their recording in was just was pretty trashed. But the ashram itself was this really awesome like hive of egg-shaped ashram like meditation rooms, and it was so intense to be there. I can't even like describe it. It was crazy. And then there was this, we had to sneak in because there's this crazy security guy, Indian guy with all you don't they're scary, but they're not scary because they all they have is sticks. And they mostly just yell at you to intimidate, but if you yell at them louder and more, like you have more authority, it actually works. And they'll back off or back down. But this guy at one point was like, it was weird. He like ran up to his little building where he was staying, and he was like changing outfits, and he was grabbing a machete and said he was gonna come down and come after all this shit. And I was with these three girls, and I like snuck in with them because they all wanted to go, and so they brought me along, you know, because this guy, it was a whole thing. Anyway, we ended up getting in and getting to walk around for a long time. It was awesome. So yeah, I did that. Question in a recorded interview about the State Department claims on the assassinations. Perkins reply, "No, I've never alleged that. I probably opened a question as to whether it might have been that way." There's no mention in any of his books about U.S. government complicity in these assassinations. Perkins, however, does allege that two of his clients, President Jaime Raldos Aguilera of Ecuador and Omar Torrijos of Panama, had been assassinated. Okay, so I was wrong. It wasn't actually Perkins. He gave me the idea that John Lennon was assassinated by the government, but it was something. And if anybody calls me crazy about this, I will find it and prove to you you're wrong. Because Credible Hulk angry. Credible Hulk, prove you wrong. Anyway. There's no mention in any of his books. I just have a really awesome sense of humor. Deal with it, folks. There's no mention in any of his books about U.S. government complicity in these assassinations. So he didn't even say these things. The State Department saying that he alleged these things, and Perkins is like, no, I never said these things. And people have read his books, and the people saying this read the books, and they're like, no, he never actually said that. Anyway, but he did say that Raldos Aguilera of Ecuador and Omar Torrijos of Panama had been assassinated, and the U.S. government had been involved, adding, I know, I was there. So, State Department can say whatever they want. They weren't actually there. John Perkins was, and he says it's so. And so all this, that's crazy. So that's what I'm saying about Wikipedia. See, it's exactly what I'm saying. They will bury things. All the things that say John Perkins is telling the truth are under the section called controversy. Like you're going to read a whole bunch of things in here that say that he was that discredit him and say that everything he said was a lie and that he shouldn't be listened to. But actually, what they say is they've looked into it, and yeah, he's actually, for the most part, telling the truth. And we've got no proof that he's lying whatsoever. Oh man, and that's the bag of tricks you have to deal with all the time when you're looking into agencies like the CIA and the NSA. And that's why the last 5 days, why I'm even talking about this, is why the last 5 days were so interesting on LinkedIn and arguing with these guys. Some of them were actual former CIA officers and or tier one operators. I can't believe I was actually in a debate over this with these people. And not that there shouldn't be a debate about it, but that they were even giving me any attention at all. And so if they ever see this video, like, I know I said some fucked up shit to you, but at the same time, I also highly respect you for talking to me at all. And I really appreciate that. I wish we could talk more. Um, but I get touchy when people call me crazy or tell me I'm full of shit or that I should just listen to the propaganda and worship my government and be thankful for them for fighting for my freedom when, near as I can tell, that is not what they actually fight for at fucking all. Sorry. Sorry. Those are the facts, people. And it's not, you will never hear me talking about things like Alex Jones or friggin' UFOs or friggin' anything or Satan worshiping cults that are eating children. And I'm not going to tell you that there's not something to any of those stories, but you're never going to hear me talking about it with any like kind of validity or this is something you should be concerned about or looking for. It's like, it's just not worth your time because a lot of it is disinformation that the CIA itself has put out there to put people off the scent of things that they're actually doing. And this all comes back to, and people will make this argument. They'll say, oh, but the CIA has to do these things because the KGB is doing these things, and MI5 and MI6 and the Chinese intelligence, they're doing these things. And so we all have to do these things because they're doing these things. And bullshit. Okay? First of all, most of them are doing these things because we're doing these things. We're the egg, not the chicken. Second of all, if these agencies were actually fighting for freedom for this country and for the world, they wouldn't be fighting to control it. They would be fighting to free it. And they'd have a much easier time doing it, and they wouldn't have to do nearly as much covert action as they do, because they would actually be on the side of something we used to believe in called good. Remember when you used to believe there was a good side to be on? That's why I love it when people are like, oh, you believe in this good and evil and the world is gray and blah, blah, blah. Hey, I know the world is gray. Not only do I know the world is gray, I know there's no such thing as good and evil. But there is such a thing as beneficial and non-beneficial, okay? And there is such a thing as truth and a lie, okay? And that is what I'm dealing with, and those are the things that upset me. Because this idea that these agencies are fighting for our freedom and to protect every citizen in the United States and even to propagate and bring the freedom and democracy of the United States to the rest of the world is complete fucking garbage when you look at the actions of these people. Sorry, deal with it. You're the ones doing it. If you don't like me saying it, stop doing it, assholes, and actually fight for freedom. All you would have to do then is you wouldn't need a physical army these days. You would just need a troll army to go on the internet and just blast the rest of the world with the facts about why their way of doing things are wrong. Because if you were actually a force for good and actually a force for freedom, it would be very obvious that you were, and you wouldn't have to trick anybody into believing it. Had to get that off my chest. I think that's really what I wanted to say. More than anything. That's why I wanted to make this video. And because I wanted to put my face behind the things that I say. A lot of times when you're having these debates on the internet, people will be, oh, you're real brave and real strong hiding on the internet and your social media platform, blah, 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 blah. Well, first of all, here I am in the flesh, recorded for all time, never to be erased, saying exactly how I feel. Deal with it. You want to see me say it in person? You have to come out here and see me because I don't have the resources to come to you. Unless you want to buy me a van, and I'll gladly come to you. And I'll bring a white flag and a bottle of scotch, and we can sit around a fire and exchange stories. It'll be great. Because that's the kind of guy I am. I'm a nice guy. I'm fun to hang out with. If you don't hate my guts. If you do, well, then, we're going to have to work through that first. But I'm down with that. It used to be a real problem for me, people not liking me. This was hard for me to do. This is really hard for me to do because I spent the first half of my life going out of my way to make people like me. That's why I stayed with Jehovah's Witnesses for so long. Because I wanted the approval of my peers, of my family, of everyone I knew. I didn't want to be a disappointment to my parents, and that was the greatest fear of my life. That was when I left, I knew that leaving. People tell me I have never sacrificed anything in my life. I knew when I was leaving that I was going to break my parents' heart, that I was going to do the worst thing I could possibly do. Like I might as well have gone and joined ISIS and blown up a school. Okay, as far as my parents are concerned, like I'd never done that. I would never do that. I'm not saying I would do that, but as far as my parents are concerned, when I left the Jehovah's Witnesses, in their mind, that was the gravity of the situation for them, and I knew that's how it was going to be. Um, and I had to sacrifice everything and everyone I knew and loved for the truth, the actual truth, to actually know what it was and to look for it. You can't look for truth while you're still adhering to lies. Good luck. Large part of why we have such a big problem on this planet. The adherence to lies, even when we know they're lies. Oh my God. These are the people I'm dealing with. It is like banging your head on a brick wall, but not always. And I realized something a long time ago. These things take time. And what I'm doing with these people, for better or worse, and for, it may not do anything, but some people, I know this for a fact, some people it does do this. You're planting seeds. You plant a seed of truth in someone, and it infects their mind for the rest of their lives. And now every time they think about, or it comes up in discussion, the thing that you were talking about, they will be unable to not flash back to the memory of the conversation that they had with you and the theories that you put forth. And if what you were saying is actually true and actually holds water, you will over time be forced to realize the truth of what you said. And this could take days, weeks, years, decades. And a lot of people just never get it. But some of them do. I was one of those people. People planted seeds in my mind of truth. And it took a while for it to set in. I used to be a person who said that the people who think things I do were insane. I've also been a brainwashed religious zealot who believed in God and Armageddon. I mean, my parents raised me from birth to believe that God was literally going to destroy the planet in fiery destruction any second. Like, they really believe this. To this day, the Jehovah's Witnesses still believe this crap. But this is what I was taught growing up. And my parents behaved in such a way that these things, that it demonstrated not just that they said these things were true, but they really believed these things that were true. Okay? They put all their stock into it. They took out loans because they thought that they weren't ever going to have to pay them back because Armageddon was going to come long before they would ever have to worry about that. Needless to say, it did not help us economically as I was growing up. And yes, I grew up dirt fucking poor because my parents were always waiting for the end of the world and said no to anything that involved actual like financial security in this system of things. They're the reason that I questioned government in the first place. I wasn't allowed to pledge allegiance to the flag. Like, it was forbidden. I wasn't allowed to go to college. It was like that was forbidden. You went to high school, and then after that, you get whatever shit job you can, and you put in as many hours of service you can, going door to door to warn all the people of the world about the impending doom, because the only way they can live is if they're Jehovah's Witnesses. So naturally, you want to do this if you're a good person. Oh man. So, Memorial Day, remember the freedom? Yeah, the freedom that those guys supposedly fought for is also the freedom that allowed my parents to brainwash me and resulted in 21 years of childhood trauma for me. So, I'm not saying there shouldn't be freedom of religion, but something to think about when you're talking about freedom. Your imaginary sense of it. Like we even actually have that. This is another thing I was saying to somebody today about government. Let me find this one real quick because this was good. I know, I'm so proud of myself. I am. I love myself, and it shows, kind of, a little bit. I've only recently come to love myself. I despised myself for a long time because that's what the world taught me I should do, because I wasn't financially successful in their bullshit world. But it turns out I'm actually pretty freaking awesome. I just need to come up with some good ideas that are lucrative. I'm working on that. In the meantime, I got a lot of things to bitch about and say. Because I spent the last few decades looking into all this garbage. And it's lunacy, I say. It's lunacy. It's madness, I say. Yeah, right here. So this guy was asking, where can I go to escape the fascism of the United States? He was like seriously asking if there's anyone that's taking refugees from the U.S. And I said in response, there is nowhere. It boggles my mind that people think they can have a government and not be governed. I mean, the wording is wrong right from the start. The term government is a fascist term. If you are governed, you are ruled. If you are ruled, you are not free. Hashtag facepalm. And with that, I leave you on this wonderful, wonderful, happy propaganda day.